The thing is this, okay, lucky for me, I didn't have toxic parents, but I was around people that were toxic most of my life. So, okay, some people were like, she speaks differently. Some people were like, she looks different. Or, so I was on a spiral of trying to change myself every time to
conform yourself.
Not knowing that effect
is destabilizing your internal
and then
homeostasis.
Tends to show.
Mental wellness is your ability to cope with normal stresses of life. So when these pressures come, the personality of the individual to cope with these stresses, comes into play. So we have psychological factors, mental resilience, or mental toughness. These are psychological factors.
So how does this depression get to a level or get to a point, and before you know it, somebody's giving up? I can't do this anymore, and takes their own life.
Okay, so we have several symptoms that before you say that. So this research is what puts together symptoms.
Okay.
Because how do we know that when someone has body pain or eye pain and then fever, then we say the person has malaria? It's because research showed that it happened to this person, this person, this person, this person, this person. So it happened to a significant number of people, and all of them together then would say that so that's how symptoms come about. So as a result of research. So there are certain symptoms that come together that gives us the ability to say that this individual is suffering depression. And suicide is one of those symptoms.
Whoa.
So it's not a graduation of the fact that somebody is depressed, then he graduated to suicide. That's not how it works. It's just like saying that how do you know you're having malaria, for example?
Pains, body pain.
For some other people, they vomit.
Yes, and high temperature.
Not everybody vomits, right?
Yeah.
So how do we then say that, take care of your malaria before you graduate to vomiting?
Okay. It's a symptom.
It's a symptom. Okay, so it's a symptom of depression. It's one of the symptoms of depression. It could be present, it could be absent. It's not mandatory.
Okay.
And the fact that someone is suicidal is not to mean the person is depressed. There are other causes. There are other causes of suicide. For example, someone who abuses substances becomes suicidal.
Yes.
Someone who has certain phobias, sometimes it graduates or certain anxiety or panic attacks.
Yes.
There are some people who go through certain traumas. Okay, and then there's even, in fact, there is a classification that we usually use for types of suicide. Do you get what I mean? That people who get suicidal, for example, there's anomic suicide. There are also people who get suicidal because they want to give their lives for a cause.
Wow.
Suicide bombers are example. You would choose to commit suicide because they feel that the world become a better place
without them.
Without them. Not because they are battling
with depression.
But they just feel that, let them lay down their lives.
Okay.
So there are different types of suicide. But the fact that someone commits suicide is not to mean the person is depressed. We have people with other types of mental illnesses that are suicidal as well. Okay. It's not only in depression. Okay, there are people who have schizophrenia who are also suicidal. There are other types of mental illnesses that make people become suicidal.
But don't you think people need to be mentally aware?
That was what led me to starting my network. It's called the Peak Network. And what we just do is to educate people. So we go to churches, we go to mosques, we go to schools, we do media rounds, just to talk and educate people. We do community outreaches where we have our placards and all of that, but you see, these things are not enough. And we have about 200 volunteers who come with us and try to get these things done. But that's why we're here, right? That's why you are having this topic.
So true.
Yes,
so true. What was your experience like? How did you get out of it?
Okay, first of all, I need to correct the notion that you get out of depression.
Oh,
It's
is it not possible to get out of it?
it's possible to maintain it. As
Oh,
in, you meant. I'm sure you back me up on there, or maybe I'm wrong about what I'm saying.
no, go
But there's
ahead.
a way
Go
you
ahead.
can
Okay, go
maintain
ahead.
it
Okay,
to
let
a
me hear.
point.
Yeah.
So mine started early in life, where your parents tell you so okay, there's this statement of the person that came first is best to have two heads. Not good when you're talking to kids. When you're talking to kids, make them express who they are.
Ah.
I have a program where I talk to parents that, okay, please allow your kids be kids. Allow them to be who they want to be. They brought the identity from heaven. All you have to do is brush it up.
That's
You don't have to impose and put and build what you want. You allow them be. So I wasn't so good in certain parts.
Okay.
I was good in certain subjects. I
Okay.
was so you hear the person that came first. Does he have two heads? With me coming second. Imagine. And then
Not first from bottom.
no, you can't even have that. You want
want to
no. So those kind of things gradual. I come from a very large family where maybe this person is good in terms of sports, this person is good in terms of cooking, this person, so they make you feel inadequate. Comparisons. Comparing your kids is very wrong. So with that, I try to conform to the way things were, not knowing I was losing my internal identity. And then fast forward to secondary school. You if you sound different. I grew up with a conk typical British accent.
Oh, okay.
So I try to sound Nigerian as much as I can now, but growing up it was strictly British, and so people were like, she sounds different, she's this, she's that, and then you have a name that doesn't conform to society.
Bullying you, yeah.
So you go under bully.
Bully.
So bully is another
it's
trouble, and while you're going through bullying, and then there's the educational part. A child that was always so first 10, first 5, before you know it, first 20, first 30, first. So that in itself started affecting me.
Yeah.
I'm like, I used to be like the best. Common entrance. I remember when I read my common entrance, people were looking for me to give me gifts, and then this is not me. I'm here in secondary school. I'm not making the grades. I'm not. And then you still hear the story of Carol. The people that came first to 10, they're angels, So you're still wondering about that. And I remember one time I was asked to repeat a class, and I told myself I can't go home.
What would you tell them?
I didn't even care about what I was going to tell anybody. I just said I can't go home. And I mixed up some things and I drank.
Are you kidding?
Right there in school.
Wow.
But I woke up the next morning. I was angry that I woke up. Really angry that I woke up. This was just like SS1. I was asked to repeat SS1. Not that I failed.
Not that you failed.
But because there was this, when I got into SS1, they started having this specific percentage. If you don't get like 40, you get to fail.
Yes.
Others I had the 50s, 60s, and 70s, but mathematics was it was 45. I got 41.2, thereabout, or 40 point something. So because the standard was 45, and we were asked to repeat. I said no, I'm not going to go home.
Okay.
My house is a house of mathematics. I can't go home.
Okay.
So I did.
But
But as a teenager, you're depressed. Imagine in that time of it's just now that everybody understands that 5-year-olds are depressed now, 10-year-olds. Back then, nobody tells you. My mother's a very funny woman. So I had just finished youth service. I was in my 30s already, and then one particular night, so funny, she came out of a room and she said, "So now that service is done, when are we meeting your boyfriend or your fiance or your husband?" I was like, so you say what? And then she walked away, because once she knows I say you say what, I'm getting defensive. That's another side effect of depression. You get defensive about everything. Nobody tells you anything, you just get defensive. And then she passed back and was like, I asked a question and I didn't answer. So I went back, I cried for a bit. There was no serious relationship then. I was wondering what I was going to do. But as then I already knew I was depressed.
Okay.
You already been clinically diagnosed and all that before all this time. So I told myself I cannot fall back into that suicidal thought again. Funny enough, that drinking stuff wasn't the first, but it wasn't the only time. So I told myself I can't fall back into that. And funny enough, I said I'd rather just be calm Have fun. Enjoy myself. Husband, come. Oh, you know, come. You know, come. Oh, and before I knew it.
Okay, it's it's nice hearing you share. I mean, I was taken aback as she was sharing, and I'm glad that you were able to share because not everybody can share, and not everybody should share, and not everybody should share. For some people, you have to get to that place where you are whole enough to share.
To share.
Yeah, so you might not be ripe enough to share. You might not be emotionally stable enough to share. For some people, sharing brings them more shame, which worsens the situation. So we don't force people to share.
Is depression or mental illness stigmatized?
Well, it's of course stigmatized. Everything is stigmatized, my dear. Plus sizes are stigmatized.
Tall, short,
Albino
fair.
stigmatized. Stigmatization is
Omotè
everywhere.
stigmatized. It's true that
Yes,
they're not
so-
going to stigmatize you. How can an Omotè who is going through a seemingly depressed process of mood, or like you said, you don't have to label people, you have to be sure, clinically proven that you are depressed. We know it's
It has to be
one word
clinically diagnosed.
diagnosed to be sure that you're depressed, because people throw it around, they throw it around,
You can't just say you're depressed. You
Okay,
have to go.
Okay, but
to the right
how
places.
can an Omotè handle this depression phase?
Okay, so first of all, you cannot self-diagnose. A clinical psychologist or a psychiatrist or a general practitioner, a GP, can see you and then provide a diagnosis. However, when the general practitioner sees you, he will still refer you to a psychiatrist. And, usually would say that until these two professionals are able to sit with you and run you through structured instruments, that's when you can say that, okay, I have been clinically diagnosed. And once you get a diagnosis, you've not been given a death sentence. Neither have you been given a stamp or a badge to wear as to excusing all of your behaviors. The reason people break down is because their coping skills have failed and their coping mechanisms have failed. So when you go through pressure, there are certain things that you do that helps you get out of it.
Okay.
Some people try to forget. Some people try to distract themselves.
Okay.
Yes.
So there are different, all of us have ways we cope with pressure or cope with things that we're not happy about. Someone loses a loved one. How do you try to get out of, or we'll say snap out of, somebody snaps out of anything. So when this fails, that's when we break down, right?
Yeah.
So moving forward, what we do as professionals is after a diagnosis, we provide what we call multidisciplinary approach to intervention. So after you see a professional, any professional would encourage a multidisciplinary approach based on the diagnosis. So if it's mild depression, for example, simple psychotherapy, talk therapy would help the person without medication. So moderate depression, the person might need low dose medication to help the person, and then sometimes we also provide social support depending on where how chronic. When I say chronic, how long standing
Depression.
because early intervention gives room for good outcome. Truth is, if you continue to feel that you can help yourself, then you're making it chronic. You're prolonging the situation. That's why I said early intervention yields good outcome. And also because of the narrative of the fact that people don't want to use medications. People have also stigmatized intervention. They have not only stigmatized
the people themselves.
the diagnosis. So some people will be diagnosed, but when it now comes to intervention, they don't even want to see anybody with psychia in front of their name.
They just assume,
that one is for mad people. That's so you say certain and also because people have had probably family members or friends who have probably not been managed properly or have not been given the appropriate medications that suits them.
Okay.
Because there are different types, like I said, there are different types of mental illnesses. So the fact that somebody has a mental illness and was given a medication does not mean that that's the type that you are dealing with. And it's that kind of medication you'll be given. So because people have seen those experiences, they will refuse to use medication. Because all they remember is that person that was using medication and never got better. But you forget that 5 people can have malaria. This person will use chloroquine. This person will use Fancida. Right? So, we use different brands, but they are still all anti-malaria. Some people will use something with quinine in it and will itch.
Yes.
Some will not itch.
Yes.
Some, because they itch, they would have to be given something else to be able to balance the itching. Some people, despite the fact that you give them, they will still itch. You get, so different bodies respond differently to medication. That's what we must know. So because of this, people run away.
They run from anything doctor. They run from anything that has to do with mental checking. But they don't understand that living in Lagos alone, you need a shrink. No, because you're done from work, say 4, 5, you face traffic till 9, you get home, there is no power supply, or you need if you don't want a shrink, you could get a life coach if that's easier for you. But people just want to hear that, okay, you need someone to talk to. No.
It's not every pastor that would even ask to see a professional. That's a good and someone who recognizes professionalism.
So true. I need to tell me, what were some of the symptoms you experienced?
Okay, so I'll give you general symptoms that most people experience, and then the ones that were peculiar to me.
So you.
Okay, so sometimes we lose appetite, gain appetite. Sometimes you overeat. Even with your appetite, you overeat. As in, this food is what you can take. Sometimes, if you're one of those that you actually on the plus side and you're body shamed, you stop eating. So that was where I fell into. So I was body shamed and then I stopped eating. There are other things that were, under hiding, mental states, and the physical came into it, and I was body shamed by someone I just met for the first time. You don't know me from Adam. You were hearing my voice, you liked the voice. Then you saw the person just like that. I was like, so I stopped eating. So that led to ulcer and all that. And I started hiding behind books and movies. I can't count how many books I've read in my life. I hid behind books. I hid behind not sleeping. I hid behind movies, and I hid behind excess dancing.
Just excess? Dancing can be good, huh?
Dancing can be good. No, not when it turns to affect what you're doing. Say, for example, you're cooking, you're dancing, and then you forget you're cooking and just continue dancing.
Okay.
Yeah. You may not get burnt, but you may just get to that point, and then, and then you start.
You get carried away.
It works, like I said, I used malaria as an example, and I said that 2 people would have malaria, but they would present in different ways. Okay, so I can't, the person who vomits should not say everybody must vomit. Okay, so you could both go through the same, but you would have different experiences. Dance, I saw you saying, is dance not good? Yes, because dance would increase your serotonin level. It's a physical activity that would shoot up serotonin. So we usually also encourage that you increase the activity, but we also need to know that when we're dealing with a mood disorder, we want to be sure it's not bipolar, whereas the person could go into overactivity, on another what's the word, on the other pole, on the other side of the pole. You also want to be sure that there are no comorbid or coexisting illnesses aside depression. So not everybody's case is the same. All right. Now, in answering your question, as we round up, the truth is that intervention is very different from one person to the other. And we usually would encourage that there's something we call the domains of resilience. The domains of resilience. So it helps in our functioning. And we have the spiritual aspect, for example, where you need knowing that you have a power greater than you, that you have to pray towards. You have to feed that, to help you. Now, what you are talking about is a social domain of having relationships, friendships, to someone to confide in. So, for some people, they want to confide in somebody. For some other people, because when they are going through that phase, they feel guilty, they worry over little things, so they want somebody that they can share their worries with. All right, so that's for someone who is feeling that symptom, but that's not for everybody. But we usually would encourage, because isolation is one symptom as well. Okay, so we encourage that you bring in social relationships so that you're able to stop being alone. The fact that you're in the middle of people also does not mean that you will not feel lonely. Because that's what we call it, a loneliness. Putting a before loneliness. So it's called a loneliness. Feeling alone despite being surrounded by people. Okay, so I would just simply encourage to our viewers that they should recognize that it's not all of the time that you see all of what you're going through. So it's important to listen for feedback. All right? Listen for feedback. Recognize that sometimes your coping skills or your defense mechanisms can fail. So you would need somebody else. We seek help not because we are weak. We seek help because we want to remain strong and keep functioning. That's why we seek help, not because we are weaklings.
Let's hear from you. One final word to Omotè watching right now.
Okay, be patient, love yourself, and enjoy life. If you can do that, nobody will stress you.
So it's your decision to make. One final word, ma.
Okay, my final word to you out there is the fact that you have one life to live. I usually love this quote, and I'm going to end with that. I might not have shoes to wear. I might not have clothes to eat. In fact, I may not have where to lay my head. But one thing is sure, my mind is a palace. And I will not let anyone walk through my mind with their dirty feet. I leave that with you.
Fantastic. Oh, I love that. Please, thank you so much once again. Thank you very much.